Hey everyone, welcome to Stupid Toons. I'm Luke and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Over the Moon. So Over the Moon is the latest film coming from Pearl Studios, the studio that last year brought us Abominable. Now Pearl Studios is what was formerly Oriental DreamWorks. It is a Chinese-American joint venture and a lot of their films are Chinese themed. And Over the Moon is no different as it focuses on Fei Fei, a 14-year-old girl living in China that believes wholeheartedly in the story of Chang'e and dreams of one day building a rocket ship and going to the moon to meet her. It is of course the latest animated film to come from Netflix and is the directorial debut of the legendary supervising animator Glen Keane. This is going to be a spoiler-free film by the way, so if you haven't seen the film yet and you want to make up your mind on whether or not it's for you, don't worry, I won't spoil anything. Just to give you a brief summary of the film opens with Fei Fei being told the legend of Chang'e by her mother, who we see raise her throughout the years and teach her to make mooncakes, and then of course the mother sadly passes away. The film then jumps forward 4 years and you can see that her father is starting to date a new woman and Fei Fei isn't exactly the most welcoming after a family argument where she's taunted for still believing in the legend of Chang'e. So Fei Fei sets out to prove them all wrong and builds her own rocket to the moon so she can see Chang'e herself. Now all doesn't quite go to plan as her 8-year-old soon-to-be stepbrother, Chin, tags along as a stowaway. And when they get to the moon, they find out that to get the evidence they need, they're going to have to go on a quest across the moon to find a gift to give to Chang'e. Of course, they meet a lot of characters on the way and have a lot of fun-filled adventures. And don't worry, I'm not really going to say anything more about the film's plot. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it. So what are my initial thoughts of this film? I actually loved this film. I've watched it I think 3 times now in preparation for this review. I watched it when it first came out, which was back when I was doing some of the Halloween videos. Then I actually attended a virtual Q&A with the director, and so I watched it again in preparation for that, and then I watched it again a 3rd time yesterday in preparation for this film review. And overall, I actually really loved it. Glen Keane, the director of this film, is a legendary Disney animator, and you can kind of tell it does sort of have the feel and the hallmarks of a Disney film, but it is telling an interesting new story. Now I myself am not familiar with the tale of Chang'e, Chinese culture, although I do understand it is a huge part of Chinese culture, so I did enjoy seeing this tale come to life and be shown to people all over the world. And unlike a Disney made film about China, you know, this is like an American Chinese co-production. You do know they're going to be hitting the culture touchstones, right? As the creative team consists of some Chinese people. That being said, it is in no way alienating to a Western audience. It does tell you most of what you need to know to understand the story and follow it just fine. I can imagine this film being put up there with some of the best of the animated films. Like I said, I've already watched it 3 times and I will definitely watch it more at some point. I do think there is always an element that with it being from a different culture, it does just feel fresh. It doesn't feel like something that we've seen so many times before. I'm not entirely sure how the film played in China itself, but I do know it did feel like a bit of a breath of fresh air to watch to a Western audience. Of course, I can't talk about this film without talking about the musical numbers. Yes, this film is a musical. Now Glen Keane, the director, actually said that when the script was given to him, the film was in fact not a musical, but of course he has so much prior experience in working on animated musicals over at Disney that he said that when he was reading the script, there were just moments that just jumped out to him as that moment needs to be told in a song, or it could be improved greatly from a song. You know, he said there were moments where he was reading the script and he could feel the late Howard Ashman on his shoulder going, that's a song. That bit should be turned into a song. And I've got to say, all of the songs in this film, none of them feel like they're coming out of nowhere. They're perfectly woven into the story. They help further the plot of this film. They all naturally occur. Nothing feels forced. And I do overall agree that the songs were most likely the best way to tell the story. So yeah, the songs work in the film. It works as a musical, but are the songs themselves great? Definitely. The songs in the film are quite varied. Some of them feel like they come from Broadway, much like previous Disney films. Some of them sound like they belong in the top 40. Now this isn't a bad thing. It adds a lot of variety to the film. It stops it from feeling stale. Not that a film of entirely Broadway songs would feel stale, but I just think it was a nice change of pace that different characters have a different type of musical style that fits them well. You know, I do think most of the film is rooted in like a Broadway-esque type number, or maybe that's the genre that's best suited to help telling a story through the music. whereas the character of Chang'e feels very larger than life and feels like this massive pop star, and it definitely worked. The way she's sort of idolised by Fei and different characters in the film, I like the way they drew the parallels to the celebrity culture and made her into this sort of like pop singer, with the citizens of Lumeria sort of acting as her like fans and her groupies. It definitely worked. It was really fun to see, and it didn't feel like a cliche, because I know similar things like this have been done before, but I do think it definitely worked how they did it. Rocket to the Moon has been stuck in my head for so long. You know, it's interesting my history with this film, because I was in Annecy 2 years ago when this film was maybe not announced, but it was one of the first times they spoke about it openly. I remember being incredibly excited for this film and incredibly excited for Abominable, which at the time was a lot closer to release and they were able to show us a bit more stuff from it. And Over the Moon was this like mysterious film that they were able to tell us quite much about, but Glenn Keane was there and he told us a few bits and pieces, and I remember being very excited. And they even gave us these little books which has like this drawing by Glenn Keane on it of Fei, like his character design of her, which is like a prized possession of mine. And then I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember thinking about it much after that. I mean, I think maybe the thought of this movie popped into my head last year when I went to see Abominable, but I've not heard anything about it since. And then about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw the trailer for Netflix releasing this film, and I was like, oh my god, I've completely forgotten about this film. And I was very excited. I think I saw the trailer on the Monday and the film came out on the Friday, and I was super pumped to go and watch this film, and I've got to say it definitely lived up to its hype, or the hype that I made for it, because I honestly don't feel like it's a film that a lot of people heard of. I don't feel like Netflix gave it the biggest of marketing pushes. I mean, it was definitely there on the homepage when the film came out for like a week, and it did sort of stay in the top 10 charts, so I do think people definitely saw it and watched it, but it definitely didn't get like the media blitz of like say a Disney or a DreamWorks release where everywhere you look you see posters. Now I do feel like this film sort of came and went almost quite silently, and I do think that is a shame because it is such a good film. I always think that is a bit of a danger of when films go to Netflix, but of course the benefit is that so many people are going to be exposed to the film. And just in case anyone was wondering, with this film being released in the middle of 2020, this film was always actually intended to come out on Netflix. It wasn't something that was meant to go out to the cinemas, and just due to this crazy year couldn't be released in cinemas, so Netflix bought it. No, Netflix bought it like way back 2 or 3 years ago now, and it was always intended to come out on the platform, which I think is one of the key reasons we haven't seen a lot of the advertising for it. I do think had it been a theatrical release that was moved to Netflix, there still probably would have been a bigger marketing push, but Netflix on its own doesn't seem to give films like this a massive marketing push. But from what I've seen, people have seen the film and they seem to have liked it, so that's always a positive. I really liked Fei. I thought she was a really nice, likeable girl. I thought she had a very clear motivation. You know, she was still grieving the loss of her mother, and she couldn't believe that her father was sort of moving on and finding someone new. You know, in her heart, no one could ever replace her mother, and so that was a nice story arc to see her come to grips with. As well, you had to love her absolute belief and dedication to the myth of Chang'e, and of course it turns out she was right, because Chang'e was on the moon, and that's not really a spoiler, by the way. You do meet her fairly early on in the film. Now I did like there was like a little touches like that helped flesh out her character. Even though she was constantly daydreaming about building this rocket, they did still make a point of letting us know that she was the top of her class, which I suppose is the only realistic way she would be capable of building a rocket. I did like the things the rocket was made out of, like car doors and stuff that you'd imagine like a kid could piece together if a kid was going to be able to build a rocket. It's not real science, it wouldn't actually work. You know, it's an animated film, you're going to suspend your disbelief, but it's something there where you look at it and first glance you go, oh yeah, that sounds about right. I can buy that working. I don't believe it does work, but I can buy it. The rocket combustion is of course fireworks, which big part of Chinese culture, but also something that people all over the world are familiar with, and you can sort of be like, oh yeah, I could see a rocket being made out of a firework rocket. You know, I don't know whether they had to weigh up the pros of whether that was, yeah, it's believable a kid could get fireworks to go to the moon, and do we want to encourage kids to play with fireworks? Overall, I don't think, like, you never see Fei handling the fireworks, you're just there in the rocket, so I don't feel like there's ever really a danger that it's promoting kids play with fireworks. You know, if you are a parent watching this film with your kid, maybe explain to them, don't play with fireworks. It's obvious stuff, isn't it? But You know, like I said, I don't think the film's encouraging it. It's just a thought that crossed my mind that maybe should just be noted. I really like Chang'e. I thought she was a really complex character. There was lots of layers to her. Overall, I really enjoyed watching her. She had this larger than life presence. The outfits she wears in this film were designed by the Chinese fashion designer Gu Pei, and they were absolutely exquisite and beautiful to look at, which I definitely think works really well. It's great that a character like this has like designer clothes that are incredibly and uniquely accurate to the Chinese culture. It definitely helped give this character a sense of grandeur and just the overall larger than life presence. What didn't I like with this film? There wasn't really much. There was one or two things where I was like, maybe that could have been improved on, but they weren't overall negatives. Of course, I've mentioned that this film is centred around the legend of Chang'e, and the film does open by giving us a version of the story, a very simplified one. It was sort of like a children's bedtime story. And later on in the film, you do see some of the adults sort of arguing over like details from the myth. Now, these details weren't details that were given earlier in the film, and when I was watching it I was a little confused, like what are they talking about? You know, I imagine these are typical arguments that people have had in China over the years about Chang'e and her true intentions, but it didn't really align with the version of the story they told at the start of the film. So as someone who wasn't familiar with the different versions of this myth, I was a little confused. But overall, it was just sort of like a thing they were jokingly talking about. Or it wasn't something that stopped you being able to follow the film and hurt the overall enjoyment of the film. But it is just something that in the moment it did take me out of it a little, where I questioned, oh, what are they talking about? But it didn't affect the plot of the story, so it didn't bother me too much. Fei Fei in the film has a animal sidekick, Bungie the bunny, who I actually really liked. I thought they were good, fun, cute little sidekick to follow Fei Fei around everywhere. Now when we get to the moon, Bungie sort of goes off and has her own little adventure, or at least I feel like that was the intention of the film. I do feel like we didn't really see much of what was happening with Bungie. We saw maybe one or two scenes, and then towards the end of the film Bungie makes a certain decision that, to be quite honest, to me feels like it came out of nowhere. I've watched the film 3 times now and I just keep feeling like I missed something there with the Bungie story. I don't know whether Bungie had a larger role and it got cut down as the film went on, because I didn't fully understand the decision the bunny made at the end of the film. But again, it's such a small, minor thing. The main story focuses on Fei Fei, Qin and Chang'e, so I suppose it's not a huge issue that Bungie's story is a little weaker than the others. But it's something to mention. Of course, I can't forget, there was a sort of fart joke in the film, but you know what, I'm gonna allow it because it wasn't actually a fart. It was an 8-year-old boy blowing a raspberry pretending it was a fart. And you know what, that's something an 8-year-old boy would do. Did it take me a little bit out of the film on my first watch, being that it was during a musical number? Yeah, but on my re-watches, it definitely didn't bother me as much as I thought it did the first time. You know, it's an 8-year-old boy, they blow raspberries, they pretend it's farts. I'm gonna allow this fart joke, so it's not really a negative. Yeah, overall guys, my final thoughts are I really enjoyed this film. I do love the work of Glenn Keane and a lot of the stuff he's done. I'm glad that he's finally been able to direct a film himself. He was of course meant to originally be the director of Disney's Rapunzel film, but due to some health concerns he had to take a step back from the role. But by the time the film was being turned into Tangled, he was able to return to the film and he served as the animation director of the film, just not the overall director of the film itself. Yeah, I really like this film. I definitely recommend it. I'm definitely going to watch it again at some point, like I said. And if you've not seen this film yet, what are you doing? Go watch this film. Go watch it. You're definitely going to enjoy it. You're going to love it. You know, you're going to have the song stuck in your head just like I have. Overall, I definitely really like this film. I can't recommend it enough. And you know, and that's pretty much all I've got to say on the film at the minute. Alright guys, so thanks for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a like, because it really helps out the video and gets it seen by more people. And if you want to see more videos and animation reviews from me, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified the next time one of my videos are out. I know I've been a bit quiet this last week and you might not see too much from me in this next week. I am like hard at work on a slightly bigger project, a Spider-Verse video which was meant to come out around now to tie into the release of Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's not gonna quite come to pass. It's a bit more of a bigger project from me than you might be used to seeing, so it's gonna take a little bit longer to get out. But don't worry guys, I think you are really going to enjoy it when it does come out. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thanks for watching guys. Cheers.
Thanks for watching Tube of Tunes. If you want more from the channel, hit subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, follow us on our socials. Hope you liked it. Cheers.